Hi, everyone. It's Tanya Davis here again, and I have the immense pleasure today to interview Blythe about his two poetry books for the Atlantic Publisher Marketing Association's Voices campaign. We're amplifying 2S LGBTIQ plus voices here in Atlantic Canada, people who either live in Atlantic Canada or published by publishers here. And I'm speaking today from Mi'kma'ki on Epiquet, Prince Edward Island. It's snowstorming outside. And I'm really happy to be here with Ali, who is on the other side of the country, 4 hours of time difference.
Island to island.
Yeah, island to island. So welcome, Ali.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So nice to have you. I have some questions, and I'm just going to introduce you with this more formal bio. I'm sure a lot of you know Ali and his work. He's the author of two critically acclaimed books exploring trans poetics, the debut collection Twoism. I know it looks backwards here on the computer, but it's a very beautiful, beautiful book. And the follow-up Hymnswitch, also very beautiful. They're both published with Goose Lane, Icehouse Poetry. His poems and essays are also published in literary journals and anthologies in Canada, England, Germany, and Slovenia. He is the winner of the Vallum Award for Poetry, twice finalist for the Dorothy Livesay BC Book Award, and recipient of an honor of distinction from the Writers' Trust of Canada for emerging LGBTQ writers. And I'm just so happy to get to speak with you today about poetry and all the things around it, which is really anything.
That's right. Your fresh books look so different from mine. This is
Oh yeah, let's see. Oh wow. Yeah.
ripped and torn from a tour actually across out to Atlantic Canada. So
Okay, how far did you go? I was wondering
my
what
back
your
pocket like this for,
amazing.
for a month or so. Yeah.
I like it when books get, like, at first when you get a new book, I feel very pristine about it and I don't want to, fold the pages or do anything, because, and also for anyone who has this book, or if you can pick it up, it's very beautiful paper. This paper stock is nice, like it's just so lovely, but it's equally lovely if you've used a book a whole lot of times and referenced it, and it kind of has that folded up vibe.
Julie did the design on these at Goose House, and I just love the work she does. I think it's so beautiful.
It's so nice. Yeah, they're very arresting. I got them in my mailbox at the same time and was very excited to open them because I got to read the poems. And of course, it's exciting. I know we're not supposed to judge books by their covers, but it's nice to get a beautiful book in your hands.
No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. So you toured across to Atlantic Canada with Twoism.
I did, yeah. It was quite a wild ride, my first book, and I don't know, Goose Lane just really got behind me, like right from the beginning, I sent in my little stack of a dozen poems or whatever to them, and they were pretty rough, but they saw something in them and they gave me a couple of years to work on them with Phil Hall. Um, and then, yeah, when I published, I went on tour, which I wasn't really expecting, to be honest with you, to get that. So, yeah, all across Canada. Didn't make it out to PEI, but, Fredericton and Halifax. And, yeah, it was really beautiful. I loved it. What a
Yeah.
town, man. Fredericton, where Goose Lane is, I just loved it there. I felt so welcomed and invited to people's houses. It's so interesting there. I was there for poetry weekend, and everyone just kind of like trooped around together. It was just lovely. We went and did our reading, and then everyone just kind of stood up and then off they'd go to like Ross Lecky's house or someone else's house, and then it's 3 a.m. and you're moving through the dark and the fog trying to find your way home. But yeah, you do. It was just quite an experience. Just so welcoming, the writers out there.
I've heard that about Poetry Weekend specifically.
Have you been?
No, I haven't. I would love to go. Is there a word for like a group of poets that moves around together? Like an animal, like a flock of seagulls? Is it
That's
a
right. There should be one, shouldn't there? Yeah. Well,
yeah, there really should be one. I wonder if there is already, or at least I've just read versions of it of what, like, I can't think of one off the top of my head. I was going to say a mermaid, a murmur Mermation.
Yeah.
That's another thing. That's a starling or something. So we need our own word.
We don't all kind of move together quite that well sometimes.
No,
Yeah,
there's some like bumping in. Some people fall over. It's
that's
maybe
right.
not as for as smooth as poets can be. It's not
That's
entirely smooth all the time.
right.
So you had a couple of years to work on the poems for Twoism.
Yes, thank goodness. Yeah, I did. Yeah, and then
Mhm.
Hymnswitch was a little bit more ready to
Yeah.
go. Yeah, and I was lucky enough to be able to take 6 months off from my work and to go to Taos actually to write that one. So I was in the desert working on that one for 6 months. So
Did the
yeah.
desert did the desert inform your writing in a different way than maybe the west coast of BC, do you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, the first part of Hymn Switch actually takes place in Vancouver in an alcohol recovery center and coming to terms with sobriety and stuff like that. And then the second half is in the desert. Oh yeah, but that landscape, I just love that landscape. Just gorgeous for sure.
Yeah, I've
It's a
never
little more
been.
placed, I guess. My first one was very much like sort of, well, it was in a hotel in my head kind of a thing. And it was a little bit more
Hmm.
in staccato and the
Hmm.
second one was definitely a little bit more placed.
Right. And the opening poem in Twoism is called Hotel Room. Is
That's
it?
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I do like to place the reader,
Hotel. Yeah.
Betsy Warland once told me that one of the great generosities you can do for your reader is to kind of place them, even if it's in a really weird place, but just be like, here we are, wherever that is, so that you can look around and be in the poems a little bit more easily.
Hmm. We can have some different kind of context. And yeah,
Hmm.
I never thought of that. Although I did feel placed like right from the get-go. It's like, oh, here we are in a hotel.
All
Okay.
right.
I love
Yeah.
hotels.
Oh, me too.
Um,
And it stays in the hotel the whole time for sure.
yeah.
Which is funny because I did actually write those first stack of 12 poems at the BAMP Center, which is kind of like
Yeah,
a little hotel, right?
it is kind of like a little hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I was really like the second poem. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Pareidolia. Pareidolia.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a word that wasn't familiar to me.
But you've
But
experienced it, right?
I've experienced it, yeah, and it just sets up this tone. I mean, it's kind of sad. You're talking about how even the alarm clock has a sad face, and the look of the face in the electrical outlet, and that you're trained to see sad faces everywhere, which is, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is.
But
Yeah.
I love the honesty of it. Do you still see these sad faces everywhere, or do you think there's been a shift in that?
Oh, that's a fine question. Well, okay. There's probably been a bit of a shift, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still do see those electric
Yeah.
socket faces for sure, and all
Yeah.
that. Maybe they're not quite so sad.
Maybe
That's
they're not
nice.
quite
Well, I'm glad we've had this chat. I've
so
seen, I've seen what a long way I've come. That's
bad.
amazing. It is. I have thought of these two books and the book I'm working on now for a long time as a bit of a trilogy. Not that sort of you can kind of maybe track what's happening. It's not narratively a trilogy, but there has been a movement for me that's sort of about the body. In the first book, Twoism, someone is really running around in that hotel room, but in
Mhm.
their mind, like trying to put on a body other than their own, right? Whether that's like a lover's or animal
Lots
skins.
of animals, lots of different animals involved.
That's right. And then in the second one, Hymn Switch, it's like all about what to do when you land in your own body and everything catches up with you, and here you are and dealing with that. And then my next book, Steadfast, is about being a body in relationship to another body. So more love poems, I'd say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Another body entirely outside of yours, like a
That's
partner,
right.
kind
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
steadfast.
Steadfast.
I wonder what color steadfast will be. I'm sure it's going to match well with these.
Oh,
Just a punch.
I have conversations in my head with Julie all the time about that. Yeah. I hope it'll be maybe a soft gray.
Yes, I like your palette.
Why, thank you. I
Yes, very much.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Was is hymn switch? I think it's just a beautiful word, all in and of itself. I don't. I didn't Google it. I was going to, and I think I read an interview actually where you said, "I'm trying to look up things less, like look up less words." And is that the
That's
word I
great.
mean?
Yeah.
But hymn switch. What do you think of with that word? Like, what does that like to name your book that, or is it does it have anything to do with like the religion or changing philosophies, or where does that word come from for you, hymn switch?
Yeah, it isn't a word except in this book, which
Mhm.
I like. I don't exactly know. Um, I had, well, actually, I was in another hotel room and I had written out on hotel paper just a few little poems, um, and I stitched them together, um, and sent them to my friend, and I called it Hymn Switch. I don't know. I like the hymn that it can be both HIM or HYMN,
Mhm.
and the book really is about a switch and kind of, yeah, learning how to be oneself, and what that requires, I
Mhm.
suppose. But no, I
Mhm.
don't I don't know exactly. I read a lot of Celan, and I love sort of the way he puts words together in this gorgeous way, and it was probably informed a little bit by that. I would think.
Well, I like it. I hope that it just becomes a word in our switch.
I'll
Um,
try to get a Wikipedia page up about it. That would be fun.
yes,
Go
yeah,
do that.
I
You can
support
just do a
that.
Wikipedia page.
I
You know,
mean, apparently there are a lot of Wikipedia pages. I think it's a thing. You can, if you have a word, you make a page, then it's real.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I would just love to see the front of your hat. Isn't that so weird? You don't have to show me, but I've been
Well, I'll show you. See, it's backwards. I don't. It says
very
towns.
nice.
Yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, Town City, which I guess it's a brand. I think of it as I live on Prince Edward Island. It's very small. There is a city, Charlottetown, but it's basically a town.
Right.
So,
Very nice.
uh,
Sorry for the non sequitur there.
oh, I love them.
Yeah.
But speaking of sequiturs,
Ah,
I I really liked the intro to Hymn Switch, the waking and the proceeding, um,
mhm.
which it stands on its own, and then there's a break, and then the book continues. And I sort of read it as a bit of a lot of references to Twoism, and I was wondering if you it
Mm.
felt to me like a passing of the baton, or you were taking what you learned in Twoism, and here comes the next bunch of thoughts and ideas and poetry. And I was wondering if that was, and it might be, I also got to read the books close together, where I know they were published 4 years apart, but I got to read them, right after the other. So I got a lot of the references, and I recognized things very quickly from Twoism. And I was wondering if there was sort of a letting go, or a passing of something to get, because and now you said that it's a bit, you think of it a bit as a trilogy. Um, so if you felt like that, putting out Hymn Switch, or if you had to say goodbye to Twoism in any way,
Mm, maybe not say
maybe
good.
not say goodbye, but
Yeah, but definitely, definitely a lot of images, are in both, and they come back, though they're different now for sure.
Mhm,
Yeah, that
mhm.
opening, what kind of salvo, the hello forever ago, like, and then sort of like just addressing, it's been 4 years since I last spoke with you, book kind of a thing, and here's where we are, and here's where we've been together.
Mhm.
It was important to me to think that someone had been with me last time and here they are again. And so yes, you're gonna see some of the same things and you're gonna see some different things for sure. That's yeah,
Yeah, but
I
some of the
appreciate that
yeah,
thinking.
some of the same things, but from an entirely different from different angles with new views.
Mhm.
Um, but it did seem, yeah, like a little bit of a caretaking, like a caring gesture to the
Ah,
reader.
thank
Um,
you. I appreciate that. That's important to
mhm.
me, that care for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you can kind of feel you can feel it throughout your work. Um, I also I did Google some things while
Did you?
reading your book. Yes, I did, because it's very smart. It's very deep. There's layers to uncover in your writing, and it's clear you've studied or have an interest in um, philosophy, gods, mythology. So some of the things that I googled were who is Jovian, and
Ah, I know.
even Odin. Yeah, I just didn't know a lot. I didn't know some of the philosophical and mythological references. Are those stories and things you have in your head and your worldview um, that come to you when you're writing, or are you looking things up also when you're writing? Like, I don't know if I'd be able to pull Jovian out of my head in reference to a
Right.
poem, but maybe you can.
Right. Oh, I love myth. I do. I
Right.
love the word myth. I love mythology. For sure. I would say it's probably a part of my worldview, but I do um, for sure geek out and research and learn more as I go. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Jovian diffusions. Yeah,
Yeah,
gee.
Jovian diffusions.
That's a difficult one, isn't it? For me, maybe
Mhm.
people to come across.
But it
Yeah.
has, I mean, it also just it sounds really nice too. Even before some of us have to Google it, it still is like, oh, Jovian diffusions.
Yeah, and some of it too just comes from artwork. Like I can't remember right now, but there's a beautiful image of Jupiter coming to Io and sort of in a cloud, right? So I don't know. Those sort of sit with me as well as I'm writing.
Yeah, I think um, I can recall a lot of cloud references as well in Twoism, especially. Um, a lot of very nice imagery to sit in and sit with. Um,
It's so funny. I was talking to my partner about like writing essays and such, and like what you would choose if you could like sort of become an expert on anything and you could sort of write about one thing for the rest of your life, and the only things that I could come up with were clouds and moss.
moss.
Like you could just maybe never come to the end of clouds or
That's
moss.
interesting because clouds and moss, even though they're so different, worlds apart from each other in one way, but moss can look very cloud-like.
Ah,
Kinds of moss. You know, if you're in a certain forest and there's that green smushy moss, I obviously am not an expert on moss. I don't know what that particular moss is called, but you know, I think they have an interesting relationship visually.
okay. I'm in. Maybe I'll write an essay about the two of them together. That's great. A cloud of poets, a moss of poets. I
Oh, a
just
cloud of poets. There you go. Kind of lots of weather systems possible.
there you go.
There might be a rainbow. We don't know yet.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Do you have something you think you could write about for the rest of your life?
That's an interesting
Put you on
question.
the spot.
Yeah. Not in any sort of scientific way. I wonder, like feelings, but that's such,
Yeah, there you go. Good one. No, you've left yourself a lot of room there. That's fantastic.
yeah, that's a little too vague. Yeah, I could work, maybe just narrow it down. I also really love to write and think about sadness, although similarly to what you referenced at the beginning of our talk, I don't think about it as much as I did even 10 years, even 5 years ago. So
Oh, good. That's wonderful. You're doing so well.
sadness is very beautiful, but we need to be careful with it. Um, Do you do a lot of I mean, I've read one of your essays, and I know that you work as a communications. I was going to say communications professional.
From the book. Yeah, that's funny. I am a communications professional. Yes. Um,
Um, so you do a lot of
I've
writing
only
besides.
ever written that one essay, so that's like
Okay.
it's the first one I've published. But I'm excited to write more for sure. It's a wonderful form.
I mean, I felt your poetry in that essay as well. It's very poetic.
Little lyric thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you're excited to write some more.
Yes, for sure. I'm stoked, especially now that we've had this moss chat.
Read your essay about moss and clouds, moss clouds.
Exactly.
Um, is there in the writing you do that's not poetry, any work related writing, does that do you find it difficult to move back and forth between that kind of writing and your poetic mind?
No, it's a different thing. You
Yeah.
know, I've got a great job. I work at Royal Roads University and do digital communications over there, and I really enjoyed being there um, on campus. It's on 565 acres of forest and on the water, so it's great being up there, and I love that work. But it's a different thing coming home, you know, and working on poems. It takes a little bit sometimes to shift into that mindset, but you know, I live with an exceptional poet, and you know, I have the music I put on that sort of brings me back. So I started listening to actually Birds of Canada when I was writing Twoism, which
Mhm.
they have a song called Twoism, and so like I've listened to that all the way through. So I kind of just have to put on my earphones and like put on those songs, and it's just like it just opens up the whole world of poetry for me, and I can kind of drift into it. So no, not too much trouble flipping back and forth. And plus, there's always like for me, there's just like it's always there, kind of slipstream, you know, that different sort of poetic world. It's along for the ride, for sure. When I'm moving through the world, I don't know about for you.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think sometime of like a poet's role or the job, what's the job of a poet? I think I've thought about it before quite a bit and talked about it with people that I think a poet's role and many writers and artists, but is to observe and then, report back in a whatever their language is.
That's right.
So it's hard to not observe. It's hard
Yeah,
to like just shut it down.
yeah. And it can be kind of like a bit of a life-saving place too. I know that like for me, like I don't know, being trans or for queer people, it can be uh, difficult to sort of exist in the world easily. And I know there are lots of other things that make it difficult to exist in the world easily, but it is a place that can be hard to be in an embodied way, and just to have this other world that you have access to that is a kind of a freedom, and it's kind of yours. It's a place you sort of you can disappear or appear in, and have it there with you. I don't know. I
Mm.
think it's important.
Yeah, I think it's like invaluable and also as lonely and hard as our heads can get sometimes that they're free in there. We can be however we need to be inside our heads and nobody can actually get in.
That's
Uh,
that's right. Yeah.
is both I used to think a lot about how painful that was and if I'm thinking about union, um actually there's a line that you wrote that I love in your poem Forge. It was in Hymnswitch. Please point me to a religion with no hope for union, so love for life draws near for good. Um, and yeah, because I think about union a lot and I trip up on it because I think that it's possible and impossible. And in a way, we have it. We are in union with with people, with our world that we're, just one of many microcosms of. And also in this headway, no one can get in there. And so it's like this rub that it's so lonely. At times. And so in the search for it, in the search for union, I find it a bit exhausting. So I
Mm.
this ask that you said, please point me to a religion with no hope for union. so love for life draws near for good. Um, yeah, what do you still hope for that? For a religion with no hope for union? What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, it, the no hope for union, like it's a bit of a two sides thing, right? Of course, with the no hope for union, there's still a bit of longing in it to be able to merge with a person or God or even oneself, right? Um, there's still kind of a longing for that, but that longing is so important as well, right? You can only incrementally get closer and closer and closer to something. I don't know that whenever merges, right? But it can be a beautiful thing, that process of attempting it, right? Um, yeah, I mean, in the same way that when you try and write with metaphor, with whatever you're trying to come closer to be able to, as you say, report, observe on the word. You just keep trying, you keep shooting those arrows at something, right? And that process is beautiful, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, and the process is as much as we have. It's never obviously going to end or be finite or be wrapped up neatly. We're not.
Or
Yeah.
maybe it will right at the end. Who knows? We don't know.
Um, um, that kind of I don't kind of reminds me of this other line I wrote down that I liked a lot. I was curious about in Twoism in your poem, excuse me, one way intake valve to crazy. You wrote, I am built on the sinking sensation of looking back and becoming aware that the life I long for is just a larger version of the life I am in. Um, and I was wondering if that's happened yet, if the life you're longing for is a larger version of the life that you are in. Um, I was trying to get to the bottom of that and understand it a little bit, and if that was, the sinking sensation that that you have what you want already, and you don't have to, or I don't know. I guess I was wondering if you could elaborate on that for me.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I just don't know. There's this idea that one evolves and becomes different in some way, um, and that you sort of move steadily towards becoming
Hmm.
something else, you know? And but really, if I track it back throughout my life, that's not the way it sort of works. You know, your life may expand or contract in various ways, but it's still just that, it's just that life, and there is kind of a sadness to that. This is what we've got. This is who we are. Um, this is what we were born into, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but there is kind of a relief in that too. Just this acceptance of what is, that is always already, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see the relief in that. Um, it's a lot of work to be becoming and to be expanding and hoping to arrive somewhere, and that of course we can still aim to do so, but yeah, at a certain point this is what it is.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I can kind of just like reach back and grab that little kid and just like and just realize that it's I'm not that or something, you know, and you can reach forward in time and see yourself and be like, I'm not that either. I don't know. I maybe that's a strange thought.
Physics wrapped up in there or something. um
Mm.
yeah, you I'm blanking on the name, but you edit a journal for youth out in Victoria. What's it called again?
Oh, yeah, I don't do that anymore, but I did for a long time the Claremont Review. What a fantastic thing that was.
You had
Just
lots of opportunity to talk and read like younger writers.
oh yeah, that was wonderful. I would like to do that again. Just the stuff that came in was incredible and vibrant and strange, and I loved it. I loved putting those books together. And such an important venue for so many young people starting out and getting published and all
Mm.
that. Yeah,
Having a place to put their becoming thoughts as they
that's
be.
right. Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
I know you've done editing for guest editors for Malahad and Arc and some other places. What do you get out of the editing process with that, with poetry? What do you like about it?
Well, in both Ark and Malahat, they were editions that were queer or trans, and I don't know. I like the curation. I like selecting poems that are about being queer and trans, but also not. Like sometimes I have found that a lot of what gets published is sort of about either the transition process or what has happened to someone and such. And I love being able to reach in and find those poems that are, sort of allow more space to write about anything you want, right? Um, so I don't know. I mean, both are very important, but just giving folks a little bit more space to explore and be and um, publish some of those other poems. And I think um, yeah, that doesn't always happen when not queer, not trans people put books together. They're kind of looking for some narrative, and
Right?
I mean I look for them too. I like them as well, but
They're not the only thing that
they're not
queer.
the only thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
or yeah. I like to think that that's shifting because there's been more queer and trans poets being published and more people realizing like, oh, right, they many things to talk about, just like all of us.
That's right. Yeah.
It's changing it. It's really refreshing in the publishing world in general for lots of voices.
Oh, for sure. There's so much good stuff out there right now. Trish Salaz is doing some incredible work. Luke Hathaway, who is at a St. Mary in Halifax, just came out with this book, The Affirmations, and it's incredible. Just the work he's doing is so good.
You could be reading all day long.
I know, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And when so you've been working on Steadfast, when approximately are we going to be able to read some of those poems?
2023,
Okay, that's soon.
next year. Yeah. Uh-huh. It's probably ready to go a little sooner before that, but I like the idea of at least leaving 4 years between books
Mhm.
published. Yeah. So I'm working on it right now with Phil Hall, uh, editing it, and so that's fun. He was actually out here for a bit, so got to see him too. That was nice.
Edit in person and not just on Zoom.
Well, we mostly just ended up drinking coffee and
Great.
talking about writers. So that was really fun. But yeah,
Common part of the writing practice.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to read it. I loved reading these books. I
Oh,
love like I've read some of your poems over the years in publications, journals. But it was nice to like sit and really just read back to back, like poems after poems, and to read more about you and think about the things that you're saying in these books. I'll hold them again for people, even though they're a little backwards, but you should seek them out if you haven't already. Hymnswitch and Twoism by Blythe, who I've been here on Zoom with today. And thank you so much for joining us at 9 o'clock in the morning before work.
that's right. Yeah.
So generous of
Tell
you.
my boss that I was gonna miss our morning meeting. No, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. I hope we get to do it again soon.
so much, and enjoy the day and the editing process for Steadfast. Can't wait.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.